Good afternoon. My name is Birgit Green, and I'm with University Outreach and Engagement. I'd like to welcome you to our final session of the 4th Annual Engaged Scholarship Symposium, which is offered virtually this year as part of Discoveries to Impact. This morning, we highlighted 2 of our President's Engaged Scholarship award-winning programs. And this afternoon, you'll have the pleasure to hear about 2 additional programs that involve partnerships with communities where faculty, staff, and students are trying to address the need or an issue in the community. And these teams whom you will hear from have done an outstanding job in incorporating these kinds of experiences into their curriculum, into their research, into their programming. So it's my pleasure to introduce the winners of our President's Exemplary Award, Program Award. And it's the ACOM block, so the so-called ACOM block, an innovative course structure to engage students with industry. And we have Dr. Lindsay Kennedy, Dr. Courtney Myers, Dr. Courtney Gibson, Dr. Erica Erbeck, as well as Haleigh Erramouspe with, and I may have butchered that, I apologize, with Kastner, who will talk about their program. They have several partners they are working with, which is the Texas Department of Agriculture, the Lubbock County 4-H, Pets of Lubbock, Communities in Schools, and Legacy Play Village. I'll turn it over to the team.
I'm very honored to be here on behalf of the team. And I want to encourage you that as we go through our slides, if there's anything you have a question about, please add that in the chat and one of us can respond to that. Or we can, come back to that at the very end. So the AdCom block, as Dr. Green introduced, is what we're here to talk about today. We're going to describe what that is and explain the impact that we've had with working with community partners, and also how that has impacted what we've done in the program and the larger university. We're going to share some lessons we've learned. They're not always easy lessons, but they're important lessons, and some best practices. And then finally, we're going to end with some thoughts for the future and hopefully much time for us to visit a little bit more. So what is the block? Well, the block is a cohort of 4 classes. They are all our senior level capstone experiences. And the students in one class are the same students that are in the next class. So we have a cohort of agricultural communication students who complete all of these classes at the same time. And you'll hear more about why we think that approach is great. I do want to just justify a little bit and provide some context about why we developed the block, because moving from 4 independent courses that are taught by 4 different instructors in 1 year to trying to pull those all together and have a cohesive, collaborative experience did not happen overnight. We started to develop the idea for this block to answer some bigger needs that we were seeing. So we wanted to create a way for our students to gain real world communications experience in a novel and innovative way. We also were looking for a way to provide a more comprehensive and holistic educational experience where our students didn't end one class and put away the notebook and then go to the next class. We wanted them to see that overlap and that contribution that they made in one class would benefit them in another, much like we have in our work lives. We also wanted to incorporate the skills that our students need to thrive in an agricultural communications industry that's ever changing and ever evolving and is dealing with more complex topics using more communication channels than ever. So the final thing we were trying to address was some feedback. We have for years engaged with our industry partners and our alumni to hear what they were needing in their future employees. And many of these things were not skills-based. They were more conceptual-based. They needed good decision makers and problem solvers, team workers with strong work ethic. So we worked to try to establish a way to do that within our coursework. So I mentioned that this block did not happen overnight. In fact, we started in 2015 just with the crazy idea of, could we make this happen? In 2015, we were named the #1 agricultural communications undergraduate program in the nation, and we're very proud of that. But we knew that other people were going to start to look to us to be that example, and we wanted to stay in front of those demands and those copycats. So we started to develop this. It meant overhauling how we advise our students to make sure that they were ready for the block in their senior year. And we started with the first block cohort in 2017. And we are very excited that we are offering our 5th block cohort this year. Our students learn a lot in the block. This is a word cloud of some of the concepts pulled from our syllabi. So there's a heavy emphasis on writing and on critical thinking. They're learning a wide variety of technical skills within the Adobe Creative Cloud. This year, we're leveraging Teams for collaborative engagement. Basically, our students are doing a lot because we know that someday they may wear a hat where they're asked to do a lot or wear many hats. Our students do a lot of things, and we're going to have more examples of these, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on these slides, but I just want to introduce you to the range of activities and tangibles that our students are producing. So they have a magazine that is a tangible product at the end of their block experience. They write for online and print and campaigns, so strategic, persuasive communication. They learn about visual communication theory and practice that in a layout class and online design courses. They are developing a communications campaign, and Dr. Erramouspe will talk more about our engagement with clients for this process. They're creating video and social media content, developing photography and graphic design skills. There you go, Haleigh. They learn the latest web design techniques and put together a portfolio site to pull that all together and showcase what they can do. And they're also monitoring social media and practicing some undergraduate research skills. I don't tell them that's what it is, but that's what it is. And so we are very proud of our students and everything that they accomplish through this collaborative cohort experience. The final thing I want to hit on before I turn it over to one of my colleagues is the collaboration between courses. So before the block, each one of us taught a course, or Dr. Gibson actually developed a course for the block, and we kind of knew what we were doing in each other's classes. Well, now we know when the deadlines are in everyone else's classes, and we have worked really hard to collaborate, and not duplicate efforts. So if students are asked to develop a skill in my class, they might utilize that skill or demonstrate that skill in a new way in a different course. So these are just to show some of those natural collaborations that exist between classes, and this is not an exhaustive list, but we wanted to demonstrate that that's another thing that we've really tried to do with the block. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Erramouspe.
Thank you so much. So the class that I am responsible for in the block is Agricultural Communications Campaigns. This is a service learning course. So each semester we work with a community partner, and we've worked with several community partners over the years. Here is the list of several people that we have worked with in the time that I have taught the class. This semester we're working with our home department. Because of COVID, we didn't really want them getting too far outside of their comfort zone. So we just had them stay here within the building, but we've got plenty of work for them to do here and plenty of opportunities for them to learn. So one of the things that's great about working with the community is it helps the community see what kind of talent pool is available here in this department. it gets them out into the community, and that also helps them with their stories in the Agriculturist magazine. It may not be this semester, but we have picked up plenty of story ideas from some of the clients that we've worked with in the campaigns class in previous semesters. And it also helps with the magazine through advertising. And that's also another way, you know, when they're out selling ads, they're out in the community and they're a good representative of Texas Tech and our department. So working with those clients and who we have worked with in the past, our steady, constant client is the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources. Our class, or I'm sorry, Dr. Kennedy's class produces the Agriculturist magazine, and there's the most recent cover right there. That is something that is a representative of the college, but our students produce that magazine. We also had been doing videos for the Ag Honors Banquet for several years, but that banquet did not happen last year, nor is it happening this year, but maybe we'll pick that up in future years. And again, we've worked with our department on creating social media content and communications campaigns for some of our various degree plans. In 2019, we worked with the Texas Department of Agriculture. One of our former faculty members had a grant through TDA to do a pesticide outreach and education campaign. So our students created those materials for that campaign, and they came up with flyers, brochures, social media plan, campaign plan, all very strategic. And the way that we approached this was we divided them up by target audience. So one team was working on a campaign to target kids age 10 and under. Another group was working on kids 10 to 17. Another was suburbanites. How do you use and dispose of pesticides? And I won't name them all, but we had 10 teams, and the list is on the screen as to how we broke up those target audiences. And here are some examples of the content that they created. They were very creative in the work that they did, and we were really proud of what they did. And TDA has picked up some of those materials that they created and are using them still. Last semester, we worked with nonprofit organizations in the Lubbock community. So Pets of Lubbock, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it is a low-cost spay-neuter clinic for cats and dogs. We also worked with Legacy Play Village, which some of you may remember. It was out kind of across the highway from Target out on the west side of town. We worked with Lubbock County 4-H for a membership drive, and then Communities in Schools, which is a local nonprofit. Each client had some different goals, but we all created a campaign for them and materials to support that campaign. And so, yeah, with Communities in School, we did an awareness campaign and a fundraising campaign. For the others, we did fundraising for everybody except Lubbock County 4-H, and with them, we did a membership drive. Number of teams varies per semester, and that's based on students. We figured out 5 or 6 students per team works best. So that number of teams varies by semester. And yeah, here's some of the designs that our students came up with for some of our various clients. They were very creative, and the clients were really, really pleased with the work that these students did for them. And this semester, we're working with the department again, and we're focusing on our various products that we have. And we call them products because they're not all majors. We have several different things that we're working on. One, we have launched a scholarship campaign. So we're using the students to help us create some of those materials for that. A couple of them are some of our degree programs, such as our bachelor's degree in ag education, one in ag leadership, our on-campus graduate degrees, our distance graduate degrees, a couple of grant projects that we have going on in our department. And then we're also doing a promotional campaign to promote the magazine that they produce. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Gibson to talk about the impact that this has on the university.
All right, thank you. So beyond just having an impact within the community, we've seen that this program has had a big impact on our presence on campus as well. It's been a really comprehensive learning experience for our students. We were able to take 4 separate courses and tie them into a really unique experience for our students and let them see how a real world kind of agency style system would work, where they get some very tangible workplace skills in working with teams and working across multiple projects at the same time. We've been nationally recognized in a couple of different avenues with work from this experience. We've done some, or had some awards from the National Agricultural Communicators of Tomorrow. We had an Excellence in Writing Award with that. Our magazine has won a couple of awards from various organizations as well. And so the products that we've produced out of this program have been recognized as being top-notch work. We've also developed really creative curriculum design throughout the collaboration that we've had to put into these courses. And I think that we're all really proud of the fact that we've come up with a very unique and innovative teaching system for our senior students. It is a capstone experience for them, and it's unlike any other that's being taught anywhere else in the country. And that's become a really big recruiting tool for us. There is no other AgCom program in the nation doing what we're doing. And I would venture out to say there's very few programs in general in higher education that are doing what we're doing. And we get asked by our fellow colleagues at other universities, how in the heck do you do this? We have a great team, and we know that, and that's one of our greatest strengths. So it's really helped us develop a national reputation for preparing students for these work-ready skills beyond just the skill set that they would get from the natural classes. We're giving them creative thinking skills, problem solving skills, skills that they cannot get besides being in a real world experience. And we've also gotten a lot of research production out of this as well. Lots of stuff on the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, research posters and papers that we've presented at various conferences across the country. And as you can see, this shows a chart of our, what we call block by the numbers, but shows some growth that we've seen throughout our 5 years of experience with the block. The first year we had 22 students. Our biggest year was 2019 when we had 51. We're at 45 this spring, and that's a lot of kids to get through a really unique and integrated experience like we're providing. Our magazine, our first one, you can see, had 60 pages. We're looking at over 128 pages this semester. So it's continued to grow. The number of videos we've been able to produce. One thing that I really want to point out is these students hustle and they sell their own ads for the magazine. And the numbers that we already have, ad sales are still ongoing. They've sold over $35,000 worth of real money ads that are going to pay for the cost of the production and printing of the magazine that they're producing. Nowhere else are they getting that experience where they're actually selling to clients and producing ads and producing a magazine like that. You can see our team numbers. And one thing that I think we're all really proud of is that our course evals have steadily increased throughout this experience. I think we would all say that our first block in 2017 was very much a learning curve for us and the students. And we have definitely adapted and changed and grown a lot. And our course evals have reflected in that. The students are seeing the value in this experience. They're getting a lot out of this experience, and the course evals are showing that those attitudes, and it's getting better. It's getting better. Every semester we teach it, it gets better. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kennedy.
All right, thank you. Yes, so lessons learned, as Dr. Gibson mentioned, after that first year of teaching the block, we got back to the drawing board and evaluated how did it work, what did we need to change going forward. And I think since then, and we're now in our 5th year, as Dr. Myers mentioned, there have been no 2 years that this has been the same, whether it depends on the industry client that we're working with, the partnerships there, what the students are doing. There's been a lot of evolution in how we've approached this. So as far as some of the key challenges and lessons learned, across the different courses, you have a lot of different teams. And so students are part of multiple teams as a result of their participation in the block. I teach the magazine class. So I actually select an editorial team that works specifically on the production process of putting the magazine together. Now, everybody in the class has a role in that, but that editorial team has a specific leadership role. In campaigns, they have teams. So figuring out how to manage that process, we've evolved that a little bit moving forward. One of the things about the block, it's meant to be hard. This was not set up to be a cupcake senior year experience. We really wanted to challenge our students with a real world type of environment before they went into the workplace. And so we've seen some growing pains with that. If anything, the attitude and just the mentality of our students, understanding that going in. I think after doing the block a couple of years, it kind of developed a reputation, and students knew that it was coming in the next few years of their education. But a lot of them now will tell you that that was an exciting part of their AgCom experience here at Texas Tech. So one of those things is managing multiple deadlines. Those of us in the real world know that that's just part of it. There's a lot of things going on, and you give them an opportunity to have to manage that in a real world experience within the confines of a classroom. And so helping them understand that, obviously we've kind of shifted the way we do our courses to align deadline wise to help with that process, but that's a valuable learning experience. One of the things is we know that every year we have growing enrollments in our program. That's obviously a good problem to have. But as you can see in that one slide where in 2019, we had 51 students in the block. When we started this program, we had 22. So you can imagine that created some challenges. We had to adjust. I know I had to adjust the way we teach the magazine class and the assignments. It certainly impacts the kind of industry partners that you bring in and the different projects that you're able to do. Sometimes it allows more industry partnerships because you have more students to do the work. Threats to positive morale and motivation, I think, is an important one because, like I said, we put the students through the ringer, but it's meant to be a positive experience to help them grow personally and professionally before they go to the workplace. So figuring out how to manage that from year to year has been interesting, but it's something that we continue to work on. Physical space, we have only so many classrooms available in our building. We want to keep that block experience here in our building. As you can imagine, with 51 students, we were busting at the seams. So learning to manage that, and when we go to the next slide, we'll learn that adaptation has been a key thing through all of this. Everybody had to deal with a disrupted 2020. Haleigh, that you'll hear from here in just a second, was a member of that class. We were rocking and rolling, everything was great, and then didn't come back from spring break. But I think that disruption led to a valuable career experience and learning that a lot of the stuff that we do in communications is very much, it's all technology based. So working remotely is something that happens in the real world, and they learned how to do that, and they completed a magazine and campaigns and all kinds of good things as a result of that process. It's also kind of helped us understand the importance of collaborative tools. We've used a program called Basecamp, which allows students to communicate, share files, work in teams. This year we've used Microsoft Teams to do that. It's also a way for our, those of you that are familiar with Blackboard here on campus, that's very much specific to one course. And these collaborative tools, we're able to put all of our courses together and communicate, and again, treat this whole experience like they're working for an organization rather than for individual entities. Another silver lining is a focus on having virtual meetings with our industry and our alumni that are scattered throughout the state and the United States. So we've been able to bring in, I think we've been more willing to bring in more speakers that are in our industry and some of our alumni to talk about some of these real world issues because we're so used to Zoom, and they are too. It's allowed us to make that connection with additional industry partners. And again, the value of real world experience. This is kind of the last safe environment that they can have these types of learning experiences from a classroom perspective before they get out into the real world. And so we try to mimic that as much as possible. We've touched on this a little bit, and this may sound like we're patting ourselves on the back, and maybe we are. This is a award presentation. So, the cohesive faculty team that we have has been crucial. And personally, I'm so grateful to get to work with a team of faculty like this group. We've known each other a long time. We each bring very specific expertise to the table that allows us to teach these different types of courses. But we are constantly communicating. We're constantly evaluating what works, what doesn't work. At the end of the semester, the beginning of the semester, in the middle of the semester, we're touching base to see, okay, what do we need to change? What do we need to do to evolve to continue to improve this program? So that collaborative spirit and that ability to work well as a team, I think has been crucial to making this whole thing work. And to that point, our students notice that. Haleigh, you can disagree with this, but our students see us as a cohesive unit, that we're not 4 individual instructors teaching different things, but yet we're treating this as something that we're all doing together. And I think that's been a really important part of this experience. Professionally, it's been really interesting to learn what everybody's doing in their own classes. In our AgCom program, we really pride ourselves on being able to produce students that are ready for the workforce when they leave our program, and we're respected by our industry because of that fact. And so it's really important that we're not working in these silos, but instead we're collaborating and knowing what the students are getting throughout their experience in our degree program. The first year, you may have seen our faces when we were talking about 2017. We learned a lot. It was rocky. We knew it was going to be tough. We knew it was going to be a challenge, but we're glad we stuck with it. The very next year was a night and day experience, because we were able to make some changes based off of our evaluation of the whole process. And so improvements have been made every year, and they'll continue to be made as we go forward. And with that, I'd like to turn it over, and Dr. Green, to your pronunciation. I think I mispronounced Haleigh's last name until she was a senior in our program, so there's no shame in that. But Haleigh Erramouspe is one of our graduates from last semester. She was in the 2020 class that helped see our magazine through to completion. She's now at National Sorghum Producers. But Haleigh, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can give a perspective from a student on what the block has been for you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. So like Dr. Kennedy said, I was in the block in the spring of 2020. I served as the editor during that time of the Agriculturist magazine. And my professors have talked through how the impact this program has on the community, the program impact it has on the university. But moving into my career, I've also been able to see the impact it's had on the agricultural communications industry once the students move out of the classroom and into an office. So my experience learning in the block was the closest thing by far I've experienced in college to working in an actual career. So they talked about managing a continuous workflow with varying projects and deadlines while working with different team members. And that's completely reflective of what I'm doing now in my work. So my experience in the block has been absolutely instrumental in preparing me for my future career. I've been able to take the project implementation strategies we've learned and the workflow management directly from the classroom into my place of work. And this experience also helped me learn to identify and utilize the strengths of other team members to ensure a project is completed of the highest quality. As the editor of the magazine during the COVID-19 outbreak, I and my other fellow students had to learn to adapt to a new environment, scheduling deadlines and meetings virtually. And with students living across the United States, I know we had students in Georgia, we had students in New Mexico, students in Washington State. So it gave us a really unique perspective of what that's looks like working with people all over the country. And working closely with my peers throughout that process really helped create a network for all of us that were involved, that we can rely on now, even after graduation. So I know personally,
I think she was just going on and on about how awesome we are. What do y'all think? Oh, Haleigh.
Life in these COVID times.
Dr. Kennedy, do you want me to move on to the next slide? And
I think so. Yep. We can come back to Haleigh if she gets unfrozen there, a National Sorghum Producer. So future plans going forward. We've hit on a few of these things, but a continual review of student feedback. Oh, there she is. Frequent reflection, both of ourselves and from what the students are producing. I think that's something that's been vital moving forward. Like I said, we've evolved this experience every year that we've done this. There's also an initiative to continually evolve our curriculum to meet industry demands. in our department, we really value our industry input. We have a good relationship with a lot of our alumni who are now actively working in the careers that we help to prepare them for. And we ask them to provide regular input. You know, what is it that our students need to learn? As Dr. Myers mentioned, one of those things, why we started the block to begin with, is we knew that our students had these hard skills, but they were lacking when it came to problem solving and strategic planning and those types of processes. So, you know, continually evolving our curriculum to stay relevant, I think is something we all need to do as faculty members, but seeking that regular engagement to keep a pulse on the industry. I think, you know, there's so many opportunities to partner with community members and industry people. You know, honestly, you have to find the right fit. You have to find a partner and a client that's willing and patient enough to work with students and know and be able to spend the time to help them formulate the products that it is that particular client needs. And so we're always on the lookout for new partners that will fit well within this, but at the same time being flexible enough to be open to some new ideas. You know, and evaluating opportunities to add new media. You only have so much time for stuff, but we've thought about adding podcasts or other types of technological focused types of experiences that we could add into our courses. So lots to do. You know, we try to chip away at this a little bit every year, and I think we've added something every year that we've done the block. So with that, I'll wrap up and offer an opportunity to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. I actually have a question. How do you prepare your students for the interaction with your clients or community partners? Because that's not automatically, I guess, integrated into the curriculum. So are there basic skills you teach? Are there orientation sessions? How do you do that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I do a lesson, probably like a half a lesson on professionalism and how to interact with the client. We talk to them about being prepared for the meeting, how to dress for their meeting, because we do send them to the client. This semester, they were able to do those meetings through Zoom, but, you know, looking presentable and always remembering that you are a representative of this department and of Texas Tech, and you need to put your best foot forward. So that's something that we do on the second or third day in my class.
Great.
And I added a comment in the chat. Before they get to the block, they've all taken another service learning course. Yeah, written. And so that idea of working with clients and getting out of the classroom is something that they have exposure to before they even get to the block.
Great.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment too. I don't know if you got a chance to see the keynote address, but it was about a project around building resilient communities. And Courtney Griesel from Oregon really gave a city perspective on that. We're working on a project here at Texas Tech along those same lines, but we're taking a more regional view. And so we would like to have a rural component to our Resilient Communities initiative. And in listening to what you've done, I think there's a couple things that could really be helpful to us. One is in the work you've probably already done in the agriculturalist, where you have probably done stories that could give us leads on the kinds of things in the rural areas that would be, that we could pursue as a part of this initiative. And the other thing, when Courtney was giving her presentation, I was really struck by how important marketing and communications was to the work that they did. And I hadn't really thought about it quite the way that, and on some of the issues that she presented, but because of the work that you do, it's really exactly the kind of things, particularly for rural communities, that would be helpful to us. So if it's something that you're interested in, I think we would like to kind of pursue that idea with you and see if there's a way you could really help us with RCI.
That'd be great. We're all shaking our heads. I think you have to be more specific to which Courtney you're referring to.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
There were a few in today's session, I believe.
There definitely was, yes.
But yes, I think we would be open definitely to that conversation. And did Haleigh make it back in the room?
Yeah, I saw her a minute ago.
Oh, I wanted her to speak to the idea of resiliency from a student perspective, but
I'm back.
Oh.
I'm still here.
Haleigh, sorry we lost you. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
The last portion that I was going to discuss was just the community engagement aspect of it. Not only has it helped several of my peers find jobs later on, but going to an organization after graduation, it really helped prepare me in prioritizing the organization's goals, ideas, and outcomes rather than my own personal preferences. Moving through your classes, you're taught a lot about what we're given a lot of freedom to pursue our own ideas, and having to take that adjustment and translate from ourselves to others is something that I found really beneficial in the program.
And Haleigh, thank you for that. Morgan's on the call today. Morgan is one of our students this semester. So, hi, Morgan.
Yeah, we are actually very excited to have Morgan. She has worked for us now for 2 years and has shared all her knowledge and skills that she learned from you, from your program, and has applied it here for university outreach and engagement. So it has been fantastic partnership. Any other questions for our presenters?
Well, I have a comment. I think it's really important that you're imparting sales skills to these young people. It is really important. I started off selling ads for when I was in high school for our program for theater, and it's hard to say no to a student, and it's a good way to ease them into that, to say, hey, this isn't bad at all. I can do this. People are generally pretty nice. And I think that's a great experience that you're imparting on them. So kudos.
Yeah, the ad sales process is something that I think some students come into the block dreading, and others embrace that opportunity because they've never heard the word no. So they're going to be a good salesman. To speak to this class, they've sold over $35,000 in advertising, and that's real money, and that's a real experience. And dealing with external clients, I think that you have to follow up with them. You have to do the things to make sure you close the deal, because that's part of your grade. And so
absolutely
valuable learning experience for sure.
Yep. I'm a salesperson from way back, so I'm glad to see this.
So is this all, by the way, pro bono work, or is there actually a revenue stream from your partners?
The only income coming in is through the sale of the advertising. That goes straight into an account that is used to print, publish, mail, the agriculturist. Dr. Obeck can speak to the clients for campaigns, but I don't believe there's been any exchange of funds in that process.
Not in the time that I have been teaching the class. So it is, pro bono work. And I put that in the syllabus. We are doing a service to a member of the community that may not have the budget to hire a marketing agency. And so they're relying on your expertise.
Great. Good. Well, thank you again, and congratulations on being the recipients of the 2021 President's Exemplary Program Award. Very well deserved, and you are truly an example of ways of engaging students in real issues, teaching them how to work with partners, how to communicate, how to exchange in mutually beneficial ways, and it's really laudable, your approach. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next team is the West Texas 3D COVID-19 Consortium, and this team is the winner of the Excellence and Engaged Scholarship Award. And the team consists of, I think I counted yesterday, I think there are over 50 just TTU people involved, and then HSC and lots of community partners, as you can see. So today, representing this huge team effort is Dr. John Correa, Dr. Genevieve Biros, Wu Yong Yang, Dr. Simon Williams, and Mark Merritt, who is one of the team's community partners. So welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for inviting us to do this, and then also for the award. This is definitely an interesting project that was unfortunately brought on by the pandemic, and it does show, I think, some really interesting things as far as how the academic community can join together with the West Texas community and other partners to have some mutual benefits. And so we'll take this sort of from some different perspectives. We have Simon Williams from the HSC, who is our leader for our group. I'm in the Honors College, and so is Wu Yang. He'll be sort of a student perspective for us. We have Mark Merritt, who is going to be our community partner, and Genevieve Biros from the College of Engineering, all doing some different things as far as having some discrete products and then some applied research for this, and then tying this all together through engagement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Simon.
Thank you, John. So I'd like to take the group here back about 14 months in time, to a time which we now know as the pre-COVID era. Around about January or February of last year, I think everyone was beginning to hear about this new disease called COVID-19. We were seeing what was happening in China, and then in Italy, and then in the Pacific Northwest, and then in New York. And we were wondering what was going to happen once this arrived in West Texas. In fact, there may have been some who hoped it would never come. But certainly from my perspective, that was never going to happen. We had to be prepared for dealing with this, what I thought at first was going to be a pandemic. And subsequently, that's obviously what happened. But what we were beginning to see was that the United States was seemingly unprepared for some of the challenges that the pandemic were going to bring on. And we were recognizing very soon, or very early on, that particularly our healthcare system seemed to be in a position where it was lacking in things like personal protective equipment and other things to protect our healthcare workers who we recognize needed to be protected. So I serve as the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the School of Medicine. One of the advantages of being in my job is that I get to meet a lot of different people and get to work with them. And at that time, I was doing a lot of work with Al Sacco and Genevieve over in the College of Engineering as we were developing some new curricular models. I knew Elisa Wong in the Honors College very well from a variety of different projects we were doing together. But we began to discuss the need for developing a sort of a homegrown response to the need for PPE. We recognized we had expertise in things like 3D printing, and started recruiting, or at least putting out a call for people to come and join us in this effort. And I will just highlight that my only role in this was cheerleader and coordinator. I did virtually none of the work, and everyone else who's listed on this award are the people who deserve all the credit for that. So one Sunday evening in February, I put out a Zoom call invite, and people started showing up, people from the community just wanting to help. So I want to tell you a little bit about that story before I hand it over to John, who'll tell you how the actual hard work was done. We eventually put together a group that on one of our later Zoom calls consisted of 97 people from all around West Texas who were interested in participating initially in protecting and looking after our healthcare workers, who we viewed as the true heroes in this endeavor. And we formed what we call the West Texas 3D COVID-19 Relief Consortium. Now, In a few minutes, you'll be able to see a slide which shows all of our partners. But what I really want to do is tell you a little bit about what kinds of challenges communities around West Texas were facing, particularly in the healthcare system. So if you go to the next slide, John. So I want to tell a story about, okay, so it's quit. So about a particular hospital system in Monahans, Texas. And I don't know if many of you have been to Monahans, Texas, but there's a hospital there called Ward Memorial Hospital. And we started talking to, this is very confusing, John, thanks so much. And we started talking to an emergency medicine doc there named Don Hillman. And he told us that in that hospital, it was a small hospital with about 60 staff, they had at most 20 face shields. They had no ventilators, and they were very concerned that they would not be able to respond effectively to a surge of COVID patients. And this is the hospital. There's actually meant to be a picture. You see actually Don Hillman is the guy in the middle of the pictures at the bottom of that screen. There he is, handsome guy, emergency medicine doc. We wanted to help him. And so what others on this call are going to do, they're going to tell you the kinds of things that we did. But to start off, I want to give you almost the final story about what the West Texas COVID-19 consortium did in the time between when we started in February and around midsummer, as we began to emerge from the really emergency crisis situation that we felt we needed to respond to. So, John, if you can move through this slide. So we started raising money, and we decided that everything that we would provide to healthcare facilities throughout West Texas would be free, it would be supported by donations. These hospitals that I'll show you in a second how many of them there are. These people do not have extra money to pay for resources that are not in their budget. Our goal was to provide resources initially focused on healthcare facilities, but eventually we expanded that to first responders, to at-risk essential workers. We distributed to senior care facilities, which you all know ended up being some of the hardest hit areas or facilities around the country, and even here in West Texas. Our goal was to provide PPE to everyone. And as I'll show you in a minute, we were able to achieve that. And we worked with a variety of different groups, including the Rural Health Institute here at the Health Science Center, to identify where these needs existed. So the next two slides show a couple of maps. So I think everyone knows where Texas is. And on March 27th, we started distributing the first products from the consortium, face shields in Lubbock to University Medical Center and Covenant Health Group. Now, at this stage, we probably didn't even understand how many other places we would have to work with, because as you can see, if we go to the next map, this represents all of the different hospital systems that exist throughout West Texas, about 78 of them. And we were able to help provide assistance to all of these sites, including as far west as El Paso. So we were working with hospital systems from high up in the Panhandle all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley and to the west in El Paso and to the east all the way to Wichita Falls. In the next slide, just give you a sense of what kinds of numbers of products we were able to distribute. You can see tens of thousands of face shields. I won't steal anyone else's thunder and talk about the kinds of products we produced, but I do want to point out that we reached out to even the Navajo Nation in northern New Mexico, where the COVID-19 pandemic was hitting the hardest. But we recognized that we could do something to help the people of West Texas get through this pandemic. And between that time in early February and when PPE supplies really started to appear more or become more available, I think that this consortium stepped up showed the spirit of West Texas, and provided the assistance that got us through those early days of the pandemic. So I'm going to hand over to John because he's going to tell you the brilliance that was put in place to start developing these products.
Yes, so our group did a lot as far as the tens of thousands of face shields and ear savers. And I wanted to talk about some of those discrete products and then the challenges that go along with that. And so I think one of the hallmarks of our group was the ability to produce these face shields. You may have seen some of these around campus. We did set aside some for the TTU faculty and staff to use. So, but this is based off of a 3D printed design. And actually these brims take about 2 hours to print, right? And we produced thousands upon thousands of them. So that required a number of 3D printers and people that had expertise in 3D printing. And we were lucky to have plenty of people on campus, Sean Scully in the Makerspace, Rebecca Massey in the ATLC, numerous people in the Whitaker College of Engineering, College of Architecture, Arts and Sciences, and also the innovation helped with this. But once word got out about our efforts, we actually had a number of people that had 3D printers at home or in their schools that offered to help and actually did produce a lot of these. So it was a really community engaged thing with that. And that brings on its own sort of challenges as far as you have all these different manufacturers and then finding a way to communicate with them the design and the specifics of how to make these brims and where to deliver them. And so there was a lot of organization that went into that. Not only that, we have the actual face shield material that we had to source and find local manufacturers that could help give us that material and also cut the material in the face of that face shield. Hub City Design was big with that, and so was the U-Labs and the Makerspace there. And we received a lot from Bowers Plastic and also a big donation from ExxonMobil for that. And so being able to match that specific assembly piece with the brim was big, and having that design be standard throughout all these community printers was essential because I think we'll talk about the production process. We will talk about that being one of the assemblers and seeing all the sort of scraps and things and the variability in the process. It's important to understand as standard as you can make that design, the better. Not only that, but we were able to simplify the design and make it adaptable for a headband to where it was easier to assemble. And we even added in another iteration that put our logo on it. So we went through all these different iterations in this process that was led by faculty and students for that, and looked at other options with resin cast brims as well. But this whole process in making an assembly is difficult, and it's much more interesting to see it done when you have a number of different producers trying to do that same thing, all without a mass production expertise or anything like that. But we had a buy-in from a community of printers that wanted to help, and not all the printers could actually make that brim just because of the work envelope. And so there were other options that we were able to come up with or find, and that would be these ear protectors or ear savers. And so if a printer couldn't print out, a full-size brim, which is essential for that assembly, they could print these. And these help people that have to wear a mask all day, and they don't have to keep the straps of the mask on their ear for an extended period of time. It alleviates that stress. Other things that were looked at and created from this, the Whitaker College of Engineering actually came up with an ambibag ventilator, which could be used in an emergency circumstance. This was a big thing that the rural hospitals requested, just to have an option in case they had to put a number of people on a ventilator. If you're talking about a rural hospital, maybe they have 1 or 2 ventilators, right? Just up that capacity. The other way that we looked at upping capacity was coming up with designs that could split the port valves to serve a number of different people, and coming up with a mechanism and method to do that. So these thankfully weren't put into actual practice. They work and everything, but weren't needed. So thankful for that. And then the other discrete product that we made were these intubation chambers. And these help protect people that are doing the intubation from any sort of aerosols that we get from the patient. And Mark was actually one of the leaders in creating these, and so I'll turn it over to him to discuss that.
I'm Mark Merritt, and I own a manufacturing company in Odessa. And on a Sunday afternoon, about a year ago, I was at home reading emails, nothing else to do. And one popped up from Dr. Nana, George Nana, Dean of Engineering at UTPB. It was regarding a request from a group at Texas Tech wanting help in manufacturing. So I responded. We were more than happy to use our machinery, engineering, and other resources we have any way we could to help with this. So I joined the group, and within 72 hours, I think, we had our first prototypes made. And I started contacting other manufacturers in Odessa and Midland area. And our capacity grew here in the Southern group, as we referred to it. Pretty soon we had Texas Tech Health Science Odessa, UTPB, Midland Odessa College, several manufacturers, and a number of home printers again, just like Lubbock did. Our capabilities and outreach went way beyond anything I could have imagined, really quickly. To anyone outside, I'm sure this looked like chaos. It did to us sometimes. But I have to say, everyone in the group had a sense of urgency. We all wore several hats. We had great attitudes, and no was never an answer. So we did good. Next slide. Our next challenge was finding materials in bulk, and the logistics to get that paid for, get it here quickly, and get it to where it was needed. And that kind of turned into a team of its own. Another group of the same people just changing hats. And Simon was a lot more involved than he lets on all of it. So everyone was great to work with. Next slide. Local manufacturers opened up their shops to help get jobs out. Places were putting these jobs in between their normal paying jobs, and a lot of times we're moving ahead of their paying customers just to help expedite and get delivery out. And then the next slide, we had special requests. We were able to accommodate people. Some places wanted portable testing booths, so we were able to accommodate that pretty efficiently. We were always looking for ways to improve designs. One of the aerosol chamber design changes was to make it so that we could ship it flat and assemble it at the location. And that worked out really well, I think. Another was a chamber on the next slide, was modifying the chamber so that it could fit in air ambulances. And they could use those. We were able to make 10 of those and get those all delivered to AeroCare, who delivered it to the other air places around West Texas so that the air ambulances had protection. And then the next slide, and as I mentioned earlier, we had prototypes ready in about 72 hours, but they needed to be in Lubbock. The ones I have were here in Odessa. FedEx and UPS seemed like that was going to take too long. So I offered to fly them to Lubbock, and they would be there in less than an hour. We realized all our deliveries needed to be fast. So I posted on social media just a small request for pilots and planes to help deliver. around West Texas. And Angel Flight in Lubbock also helped organize a lot of it. But by the end of the first week, we had several hundred planes and pilots ready to go. They spanned from anywhere from eastern New Mexico to Houston and north to Oklahoma City. So we had pretty much everything covered. And that was the birth of the West Texas 3D Air Force. And I'll turn it back over to John.
Hey guys, well, my name is Woo-Young Jang, and I'm a senior at Texas Tech University. I'm actually a part of the undergraduate to medical school initiative, which is a program that allows students to apply and be accepted into medical school in high school. And one of the requirements for this program is that each of us need 100 hours of volunteering every single year. And when the coronavirus pandemic hit Lubbock, I remember I was panicking. I was thinking, how am I gonna get these hours in? There was a lack of volunteering. I couldn't find any physicians to shadow, on top of just not being able to hang out with any of my friends because of quarantine. And I remember one day I was, lamenting this lack of opportunities to my friend Reagan, when she just turned around and looked at me and said, there's actually a group of us at the Honors College that are making face shields and other PPEs for hospitals, clinics, and different facilities in Lubbock and the surrounding West Texas region. And, I thought, okay, this is a great chance, please sign me up. When can I get started? And that's how I initially became a part of the West Texas 3D COVID Relief Consortium. And I remember before going in for my first day at the Honors College, I was sitting in my car thinking, I hope these people are cool. Is it gonna be fun, boring? Am I just gonna be going through the mechanical process of doing the assembly, get in and get out, get my hours in? But, I realized when I walked in, everyone seemed like they were having so much fun. We were laughing, we're actually having fun with the fact that we had to exert so much energy in putting in the plastic shields on the notches, because the first 3D resin casted brims weren't very ideal, but of course the process became smoother and more efficient as we designed the 3D printed brims. And more than just the assembly, we were having conversations about issues in healthcare, politics, Black Lives Matter, social injustices that were occurring during this time. And not only did I get to share my perspective, but I got to hear from students of different cultures, different religions, and different socioeconomic backgrounds about what their thoughts on what was going on was, and what they thought could be the solutions. And even more, I got to see just how many people wanted to become involved in serving our community. I remember there was a middle school student who was coming by every week to drop off 3D printed brims at the Honors College. And Under Armour donated countless headbands for our face shields, as well as I had friends texting me they saw what I posted on Snapchat about the face shield assembly, and they're like, hey, when can I come in and help out? I want to do something about it. And that just made me realize, for us college students, it wasn't the lack of enthusiasm to serve that was the problem. It's just that, during the pandemic, we didn't really have the venue to do so. And I also realized that, when a group of people come together towards the same purpose, same goal of trying to serve our community, we can accomplish so much more than what we can individually. And, you know, having said that, like, I think our results speak for themselves. Since our inception, we've assembled, you know, like 14,000 face shields over 5,000 ear guards. I just want to thank you guys for letting me, you know, share my perspective as a student on what it meant to be a part of this organization. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Juna Biros, and I'm with the College of Engineering Dean's Office. I want to start with this slide. It was late spring when we figured there was much more to exchange with the healthcare community in rural areas than what we could have accomplished through our virtual meetings. So our associate dean came up with this idea of driving across West Texas from hospital to hospital to understand their needs. So we started imagining what it would look like. And believe me, we considered each one of these options. Started, I don't know if you see my mouse, but we even considered an ice cream truck. Next slide, please. But that didn't go so well. So Texas Tech donated a van for this specific purpose. Next, please. So we formed a response team with engineering students, faculty, and staff. But really, for this, the students should get the credit because they've done a marvelous job. They ran fit tests with the hospital staff. And for most of them, it was a once in a lifetime community experience. And again, most of them wanted to go to medical school anyway. Next, please. As John mentioned, our team of engineers were working on a transport ventilator. And this was a great opportunity for our experts to design, who designed the transport ventilators to join with the community and get their feedback. And because these were the people who would be the actual users of their technology. Next, please. Among all others, I want to mention Muleshoe Hospital because our partnership went beyond what we initially targeted. We attended their education days, and that was a learning experience for both of us, for both the hospital staff and the engineers. So we fit tested their staff, and very recently we partnered on an NSF grant. This and many more in the future can happen because now we have a trusted relationship with them. Next, please. And the beginning of the pandemic, when people were scrambling to figure out the best material to make their masks out of, the IMSACO gathered a group of researchers from engineering and the arts and sciences. And we simply looked at how well these different materials were performing and got that work published very recently. Doctors Weeks and Hope Weeks put together a video on properly putting on a respirator and posted it on YouTube. And additionally, when we visited these hospitals, we informed the hospitals on the research outcomes. And eventually, this opened doors to industry collaborations as well. Next, please. Thank you. Again, just because we kept in touch with the hospital staff in the critical access hospitals, it didn't take us too long to figure out that they had a problem with not having negative pressure units attached to the rooms that they took care of COVID patients. So the students took it on, led by the faculty, designed, built, and installed these units in the hospitals. And Dr. Henson, their faculty advisor, says he's never seen students being so excited about a project. And he's been teaching this course for years now. Next, please. As a result of all these that we experienced, we realized that we needed a platform that would streamline our communication with the hospitals, and started creating a portal that we call the WISH. Next, please. So it's short for West Texas Innovation Serving Healthcare Professionals. It not only connects the hospital staff with engineers for problem solving, but also it connects them with their colleagues in other hospitals for sharing clinical best practices. Next, please. So looking back, a few takeaways and maybe a vision for the future. Our priority was supplying resources and developing technologies to help the West Texas healthcare community. But now, with the evolving needs in the region, we understand that the populations we serve may take a different look. And we need to possess that flexibility, which I understand has been the common thread across all these presentations today during the symposium. Next, stay on the slide. We always valued our collaborations, both external and internal, like institutions, Rural Health Institute. They really have the formal and long-lived connections with local communities, and we cannot lose sight of our own institutional resources. Also, there hasn't been a time in history where engineers and physicians work so closely to accomplish a common goal, which was to improve the way we take care of people. So as the School of Medicine at TTU-HSC and the Whitaker College of Engineering at TTU, even before COVID, we knew that training the physicians of the future would require them to be adaptive to any given condition or circumstance, and to have both the skills and thinking of an engineer to fully appreciate today's technology for ultimately providing the best care to their patients. Next, please. In closing, I just want to leave with you a glimpse into the future. This is what we target next, is to expand and deepen our network with the local professional communities. We are envisioning remote technologies for first responders, like contactless drone charging units for the firefighters. And in all of it, engaging our partners in every step of the research and development process will be the key, because this is how we believe we can have the greatest impact on the lives of those we care for. So with that, I'll just turn it over to the leadership of the symposium.
Are there any questions for our team? You touched at the end, Genevieve, on the question that I had. So there is, out of this partnership, not only came this supply chain and this communication technology, but there is now ongoing research and partnerships that are continuing to create new technologies that can be useful in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the consortium just gave us a vision of what we can do and our capabilities and abilities as a whole institution, and what we can do in the future, not only with the healthcare community, but with all of the professional communities, maybe local and across West Texas.
Right. Yeah. And then I was curious. I mean, with so many people involved, how did communication flow? Did you have regular meetings? Did you do things via email? How did that happen?
Simon?
Yeah, so this was possibly the only thing I did in any way that really contributed to this. Initially we had meetings of the whole groups, and we'd have 97 or 100 people on a Zoom call, just sort of sharing ideas and trying to find out what they should do. But over time, we realized that was a little bit cumbersome. So we developed a leadership team, which included faculty and from TTU-HSC, from TTU, community leaders. Mark was one of the most committed and wonderful members of that group, so that we could actually have smaller meetings and then share that information across the whole community. But I also want to point out that there were other groups that sprang up over time. So we had a group that we were working with in El Paso. We had another group we were working in San Antonio, another group in Abilene, another group in Amarillo. And so this was a very sort of flexible and growing consortium that we just tried to make sure that everyone knew what was going on. I would send out a weekly sort of update on everything that had been achieved. And so I think we were able to keep most people informed, but do it in a way that didn't overwhelm everyone in having too many Zoom meetings, which I think we've all had over the last year.
So Levi Johnson had a question. Does it take a pandemic to spark this level of community engaged response, or do you see other opportunities for this level of sophisticated collaborations?
So I'll just answer first, and then others may want to answer. I want to point out that Dean Sacco had the vision originally to reach out and say, hey, we need to be working more closely together with the School of Medicine. So we were already working together on collaborative projects really around education. So it was really easy for this community to grow with that sort of kernel, including the Honors College, and then it grew from there. But I think that it is a very important question. Why did we need a pandemic to create this almost this sense of urgency? And I think if we can figure out ways to recognize where the major challenges are, really encourage that sense of urgency without 550,000 people dying, I think we can really here in West Texas, with the sense of community we have with the incredible efforts, particularly that Geneva has put in to create these communications across West Texas, I think we can lead the country in showing how to improve the healthcare system, not just in large communities, but in every single community in a distributed area like West Texas.
Great. Any other questions? I guess just to reiterate, again, the list of people involved is mind-boggling, but just the Texas Tech entities alone, and I know you showed it on the slide earlier, but it was the Honors College, the Whitaker College of Engineering, the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Architecture, University Libraries, College of Human Sciences, Environmental Health and Safety, the TTU Innovation Hub, and the Office of Research and Innovation, and several dozen members of the TTU HSC, as well as the University of Texas Permian Basin. So again, congratulations to you all. This project is amazing and so impressive. I don't think I've ever, in my years at Texas Tech, have observed anything or heard about anything at this scale. And it's impressive that you are continuing the work, that these partnerships that have grown out of the pandemic are really continuing, and you are able to influence curriculum where medical students learn more about the engineering field, and where you are able to create new innovations and technology that can impact communities as a whole. So thank you again, and congratulations. And I'd like to thank all of our attendees this afternoon and for participating in this year's symposium. We are hoping to have a live symposium next year again, although this has been challenging, but also rewarding to see how we are easily able to bring teams together to present about their award-winning projects. For instance, in the past, it was not as easy for us to bring community partners in, and this year, as we have seen, they have been able to participate with us. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you next time.